So I spent my first 2 years selling in London, East End of London, textiles into the ladies' undergarment world. So I know more about the construction of a bra than I hate to admit, but it's a very complicated piece of engineering. And that's how I started, literally knocking on the doors at the East End of London, carrying a suitcase full of material, little pieces of material with a color swatch on top of it. And that's how this Oxford grad started his career. Okay. So if many of you think that there's nothing, there's too many things below you, try knocking on doors with fabric. It's a good way to start. Everything I'd ever wanted as a kid, since I can remember, was to be the CEO of a major global corporation. Thomson at the time was 200th on the list of global corporations, and it was right there for me. And then I began to feel terrible, and I was really struggling because my family life was struggling because I was traveling 150 nights a year. If you've got a global business, you have to travel. I was traveling 150 nights a year. My relationship with my kids, who at the time were 10 and 9, was virtually non-existent. In fact, my daughter wrote a poem, and a couple of the lines said, "Daddy, where were you when I climbed a tree? Daddy, where were you when I skinned my knee?" And it went on, and ouch. It was just ouch. I mean, that's a tough poem to read. Yeah. Just talks about an absentee dad and a daughter who's beginning to enter about to be in teen years that has no dad. And just the weight of the world came down on me, and I was really struggling. And yet, the thing that I wanted more than anything else was right there in front of me. So I had no answer, but I prayed, and one morning I was doing my morning Bible study, as I did in my little conference room before every day. And I came to Luke 18, the rich ruler. And, the story you all know, and the rich ruler comes to Jesus, "What do I have to do to get in heaven?" Jesus gives him some of the 10 Commandments. He said, "That's great, I've kept all of those." And then Jesus lowers the boom and says, "You've got to give away your money." And you remember the story, he goes away sad because he had great wealth. And I passed that over several times because I had some wealth and I didn't really want Jesus to deal with that. But, that morning, he made it very clear it was not about my wealth, it was about which was not that substantial, but it was about what was in my heart. It was about what was a priority. Was it my work or was it Jesus? And he also revealed to me in a moment of incredible clarity that the reason that I was doing my work so hard was not because of some, esoteric reason or human good reason, but it was purely and simply for my own pride and my own ego. So my own pride, my own ego was driving all this sinful behavior of being absent from my family. And it was just a moment when you look into your soul and the deeper you get, the darker it gets. And so I sat there that morning and I lifted my hands and I just said, "God, if I give you my work, I'm not walking away, I'm giving you my work." And 2 weeks later, I walked into the office of my CEO, the CEO, who had a legendary temper. And I told him that I was not going to stand for the CEO-ship. And he said something very interesting I'll never forget. He said, he didn't get mad, and he just said, "I wish I had made that decision." Very interesting comment. Anyway, 2 years later, the other guy got the job. I kept on working for 2 years, but he and I had such different ways of working, and since I was about 50% of the company, you can't have two different philosophies pulling the company. So in 1998, I had this wonderful experience of he walked into my office and we were chatting. It was a regular update. He had a yellow legal pad. He said, "I've been playing with a new organizational design." I said, "Okay." He said, "Yeah, I'd like to run it by you, see what you think, get some input." I said, "Fine." So he showed me this thing, handwritten, and I looked at it, and one thing was clear. My name was not on it. So I said, "Dick, I don't see my name on here." He said, "Oh, funny, that's what I want to talk to you about this morning." So I raised that to you. I love Dick, and I hold him no grudge at all. But I would suggest maybe there's a better way to introduce a topic than that for those of you who may have to do that in your life at some point. And there I was, cast out from the business world, this business that I built for 20 years, and it was just like, now what do I do? And so that's 1998. You know, when you're a business person, you become identified by your job. So you'd walk into a room and someone said, well, here's the CEO, Thompson, financial, and you're afforded a stature because of that. And so people would want to come to talk to you because of that. Now, let me tell you, it's very different when you go in and you're sort of between assignments, or you're thinking about what you're going to do next. You know, you talk to people in the same gatherings, and you can see their eyes when they've said that. They just wander off to see who's more interesting in the room to talk to. And you know, there's a real crisis of self-worth that takes place, because everything you've thought of as your self-worth is tied up into what you've been doing. And all of a sudden you don't have that any longer. And you have to sit there and you have to start asking the question, well, am I worth anything at all? And I think what God took me through in those 2 years was just maybe it took me longer than most people to get to this place. Most of you may get there in 2 weeks, but for 2 years for me, I think it was that God wanted me to know that I was valuable just as the person that He'd created. It's not what I did, it's who I am, and who I am in Him, and who I am because of what He did on the cross. And I tell you, you know, there's always struggle for self-worth and self-image. But if you start from who you are, you're either the daughter or the son of the King, loved by Him, you know, sacrificed for by Him, that's a great place to start when you start thinking about your self-worth. And how dare we think, with that as background, you know, other things will come into play that are more significant. There is that dichotomy between the sacred and the secular today, which I think is wrong, very wrong, and I think is leading people in a bad direction. This is a personal decision between me and God about what God wanted for me to, and what His calling on my life was. I believe fully that Christians need to be engaged in every aspect of life, fully in the business world, fully up to the CEOship. Don't take out of what I'm saying this morning that Christians can't be CEOs of major corporations. They can. But they have to be prepared for it, and I was not prepared. And I pursued, do a study of the word ambition in the New Testament. 7 times you'll find the word, 2 different words in Greek. One is always translated as selfish ambition, and the other is translated more as a goal or an objective. The goals and objectives are good. The selfish ambition is bad. I was deep into selfish ambition. And I believe very, very sincerely that God calls different people to do different things, that He's designed us and built us differently for those things, that He is concerned with the entire creation that He has made and the continuation of that creation. Creation is not finished. It's still going on, and that He's given us a role to play, and whatever role we have, that is a sacred role. If God has called us to do something, it's a sacred role. You go back to Genesis chapter 2 before the fall, and you'll find that what God gives the responsibility of man to do is to work and tend the garden. That is a sacred role. Working and tending the garden today is a sacred role. So I'm always very concerned when we get into church issues whereby, you know, you get this issue of the sent, you know, those that are being sent to go to overseas mission are somehow superior to those that are being sent to go into the workplace Monday through Friday. I don't think we are. But I think we've got to take the same expectation that that's our mission field into the workplace every Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday, whatever it will be, as we do if we take Christ into the mission field in Africa or wherever it might be.